While protesters filled the streets of South Florida this week, Black community leaders were holding virtual town halls and other meetings looking to seize this moment and push for change.
Change comes from action, and there are calls for some very specific actions and policy changes to eliminate racial bias in policing. One being the return of a civilian oversight board to Miami-Dade to review questionable police actions. Ruban Roberts right there, the president of the Miami-Dade branch of the NAACP with us. Great to have you aboard, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Glenna and Michael.
Ruben, it's great to see you again. So that does seem, Glenna laid it out there. The question of the day is, will Miami-Dade County once again have a meaningful, substantive, well-funded police independent civilian review board to overlook police for alleged misdeeds?
Well, that relies heavily on the mayor. You know, we came close, and the mayor vetoed after we had the votes. And so we are reaching out. The mayor has definitely mentioned that he is interested in it. It's sorry that an unfortunate incident like what happened to George Floyd had to happen in order for us to get this nod, if you will. But we definitely need to have independence. We definitely need to have subpoena power in order for it to be effective. Police departments can't police itself effectively, and we definitely need to have the civilian oversight board to really address some of the issues and give more trust in the community in terms of what's going on with their local police departments.
And that's a big issue as well. Mr. Roberts, I was listening to you speak at this week, the Miami-Dade County Black Affairs Advisory Board, and you actually had a couple of other ideas. And I wonder if you would go through that so that everyone listening can hear really what you think it would take to really move the needle. And sort of as a co-question to that, why hasn't this happened yet? You've been doing this work. You've been with us for years. Kind of combine those two things. What needs to happen and why hasn't it?
Well, I think you have to have the momentum. If you look back to the civil rights movement, the civil rights movement was going on for a while. Not until the cameras shined the light on what happened at the Edmund Pettus Bridge and happening at the lunch counters. And so the world saw. The world is watching us now, and they're watching how we're going to respond, each individual state, city, county, what have you. So, yes, we need to make sure that there's more accountability with police department. On any job, there are levels of accountability. If you don't perform your task as well, you will be terminated. So officers that have a history of excessive force and are terminated from one department, you know, they should not be allowed to be hired at a new department, especially within the county. And that's something that we're recommending. Yeah. We would like to see more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ruben, I was just going to say, after you, we are going to be speaking with Stedman Stahl. He, as you know, is the president of the Police Benevolent Association in Miami-Dade. I know Mr. Stahl is going to say, hey, we've got plenty of oversight already. We don't need another layer to come in and question us. We can police ourselves. Why, if you believe the police cannot police themselves, why not?
So let me give you one example. The FOP person in Broward County did not see anything wrong with that sheriff officer did in pushing a lady that sat down, that was sitting down in her protest. I've never heard of an FOP or a PBA officer or official ever identify or speak against a rogue cop. They don't speak against any police officers. So when you see that, you know that they can't be held accountable. Their union's sole purpose is to protect them, not the community. Those police officers are sworn to protect and serve, but there's nobody here to have accountability for the community. And that's what the oversight board is for.
I wonder if you would weigh in on, the city of Miami has a civilian investigative panel, just such an oversight board. And there have been real criticisms over it that the board makes recommendations. They work very hard. They investigate, they've got evidence, they do interviews, they make recommendations, and relatively few, if any times, have those recommendations been taken to action level. So I wonder if you would weigh in from your perspective. This board, as it stands, and a potential one revived in the county, how do you make a board with teeth?
So definitely, so the subpoena power and the ability to make those recommendations and to keep a file. Because the other thing that's going on while we're speaking, we have legislators that are our local legislators on a federal level that are drafting bills now to put in mechanisms where there will be a way of tracking these officers with their record. You need police oversight for that. You need those type of committees that will document and hold those records, so that if we need to go to DOJ and say, listen, we need a consent decree signed for this, they need to have they have to have some procedures and practices in place. So what it does is it's a store of record. It's a place for community members that feel that their voice wasn't heard after they've gone to the internal investigation process and nothing happened. That's just another level, another layer. But then what we can do ultimately, as new laws are going to be enacted, is make sure that we use those police oversight boards to make sure that we can have a history of what's going on with these officers and demand action in terms of termination if needed or reassignment if needed. But we need to have the civilian oversight board, because if not, police departments will definitely protect themselves and the officers that are there.
Ruben, this is the 9th straight day there will be demonstrations, protests this afternoon. One, in fact, remembering the death of Arthur McDuffie back in 1980, beaten to death by 6 Miami-Dade police officers who were later acquitted. I was here. I reported on that. We seem to have come a long way since then, but we may be at a tipping point for the good. I think 71% of the people I saw in a poll in this country oppose systemic racism and believe that black people are generally not treated as well by police as white people. Are we at that tipping point?
I hope so. I think that just the sea of support that we have, the interracial, intergenerational sea of support that we have, as you see people peacefully protesting, is definitely a promising sign, and it's happening worldwide. Folks all over the world know the plight of black people, and they know the history of black people since 401 years, if you will, in this country. So one of the things that we're hoping is that not just about the social injustice when it comes down to police relations, but when it comes down to employment opportunities, when it comes down to economic opportunities, that we are included, that we're given a fair share. We're not asking for a handout, just asking for an opportunity and access. And if you give us that access, let us do the work. So the bottom line is this: I think this is a tipping point for a change to happen, but it has to happen on multiple fronts in order for us to really make substantial change.
Ruban Roberts, the president of Miami-Dade chapter of the NAACP. We value your time and your perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.